The empty plate in the dim kitchen says more than hunger. It's a mirror of unmet desires, a silent challenge to motivation. That silence between the plate and the protagonist's gaze is the first crack in motivation, a pause that turns into a wall. He tries to rise, but the weight of inertia feels like a wall. Motivation isn't just a thought, it's a physical drag. When the body resists, the mind seeks distraction. The phone becomes a shortcut to escape the heaviness of inaction. Scrolling feeds promise validation, but they're just echoes. The protagonist's emptiness stays, untouched by likes or comments. Behind the feed lies a forgotten list of goals, a silent reminder that motivation isn't about scrolling, it's about doing. Each unfinished task is a dream left hanging, a commitment that turned into a broken promise. The weight of these forgotten tasks builds a silent wall. The realization hits. The more you ignore, the deeper the gap between intention and action grows, tightening the motivational barrier. A quiet gaze from a stranger cuts through the isolation, a reminder that someone else sees the emptiness you hide. When a stranger leaves, the silence returns, but the reflection in the mirror is now sharper than ever. The mirror shows the cost of inaction. Tired eyes, a pale face, a body that's been idle for too long. Seeing yourself forces a choice. Stay in the wall or step toward the door, toward change. The first step is the hardest, but it breaks the cycle of stagnation, a quiet sign that change is possible. Leaving the house opens a corridor to the outside world, where every step can be a new beginning. Sometimes motivation doesn't come from within. It drifts in from strangers talking about their dreams on the street. You hear someone say, "I'm finally starting my business," and something shifts. External conversations plant internal seeds. A health scare hits different when you're 24 and your body already feels like it's failing you. That moment becomes the decision point. You resolve to start. Strict diet, no excuses starting today. Evening comes and you're exhausted. That forbidden snack calls your name like it knows your password. You indulge despite knowing better. The guilt hits instantly. Another failure added to the pile. Then the bank notification hits. Gym membership payment failed. Another bill you can't cover. The guilt compounds. Financial barriers pile up, and you realize something deeper is broken. Time for therapy. In therapy, you finally look at the pattern. Every missed payment, every broken promise to yourself, it connects. That reflection unlocks something. You adopt a new diet plan, macro-focused, structured, different approach. Recovery looks like Tupperware and spreadsheets. Macro counting, meal prep, structured approach, different this time. You demonstrate resilience through action. The practical steps feel solid. This could actually work. Social event, macro-heavy meal. Everyone's eating freely, and you're sitting there with your meal prep logic. You resist. The temptation passes and confidence grows. But that refusal leads to a labeling mistake later, another external challenge. Accidentally consuming a high-calorie meal due to a labeling error disrupts their diet, challenging their motivation and forcing a reevaluation of strategies. The challenge of this error highlights external factors that disrupt progress, prompting the protagonist to question their approach to motivation. By embracing a minimalist aesthetic and focusing on clarity, the protagonist finds closure through sustainable lifestyle changes. The resolution comes through commitment to changes that align with their minimalist values, achieving a state of sustained motivation. Broad goals like be successful leave the protagonist feeling paralyzed, lacking clear direction and motivation. The lack of clarity in their goals undermines their motivation, forcing them to confront what's draining their focus. Constant digital interruptions act as environmental stressors, sapping motivation and increasing tension in the minimalist setting. The endless alerts highlight how digital overload disrupts focus, prompting the protagonist to consider removing the source of distractions. By reducing digital overload, the protagonist reclaims mental space, experiencing a brief calm that reignites their motivation. The detox demonstrates how silencing distractions can lead to a clearer mind and renewed motivation. Autonomy-driven actions, like caring for a plant, generate intrinsic motivation through meaningful, self-directed tasks. The intrinsic reward of this action boosts their internal drive, encouraging them to tackle larger goals despite potential hiccups. A missed deadline triggers self-criticism, creating a loop of avoidance and decreased motivation in the minimalist setting. This perceived failure challenges their motivation, prompting them to revisit how they set objectives to break the cycle. You think motivation needs big goals. Actually, breaking a vague aim into concrete steps like draft outline, write 200 words, review restores agency. Each tiny win proves progress. That feeling of doable tasks rebuilds motivation faster than any grand plan. You beat yourself up for slipping, but self-compassion, like a tea break, acts as a buffer against burnout. Acknowledging effort today, without harsh judgment, steadies your mood and keeps motivation from depleting. You think motivation is about big pushes. Actually, attending to simple actions, like chopping veggies with care, signals a shift. Linking these mindful moments to past progress builds quiet resilience, preparing you for the final payoff of growth. You keep postponing tasks because each attempt feels like a potential failure. That avoidance loop is a key barrier to motivation. Seeing the cycle of postponement due to fear of failure is the first step to breaking it. You replace a vague intention with a specific micro goal, like watering a plant, to break the inertia of avoidance. Completing that tiny, doable task restores agency and motivates you to examine what drains your energy. You step outside and identify chronic stressors like constant noise or visual clutter that silently drain mental energy. Recognizing these environmental factors links them directly to motivation depletion, setting the stage for adjustment. You tidy the desk, open a window for fresh air, and reduce the identified stressor. A modest change can shift motivation. A calmer environment frees attention, making space to reconnect with activities that feel personally meaningful. The protagonist rediscovers joy in sketching, forgetting all about achievement or external validation. This moment of pure enjoyment becomes the spark that rekindles everything inside. Each tiny mark on the calendar shows progress, building momentum one small win at a time. Seeing the pattern of wins builds confidence, even when some days stay blank. The protagonist misses a day, feels that familiar sting of disappointment and self-criticism. But then they pause, replace the harsh judgment with quiet self-compassion instead. Before sleep, the protagonist writes one gentle goal for tomorrow, nothing grand or overwhelming. This small act of planning carries cautious hope into the night, bridging to whatever comes next. The protagonist orders the same comfort food they promised to avoid, giving in to immediate temptation. This moment reveals how fragile their resolve really is when discipline faces easy gratification. A missed payment notification triggers that familiar wave of panic and self-recrimination. The external pressure of debt collectors mirrors the harsh judgment they heap on themselves. The protagonist realizes they massively overestimated their ability to recover from this mess. This moment of raw self-doubt becomes the deepest conflict they've faced yet. They try to compensate for their errors through sheer will, but the cost of overexertion is already visible in their exhausted expression. What they're willing to sacrifice for. Recovery? Turns out it's their body's limits, and those limits are pretty damn tired. Out of nowhere, a friend shows up offering help with the diet and finances. Sometimes the universe actually delivers on support, from isolation to connection in one simple gesture. The trajectory just shifted, dude. Staring at the mess, they finally see it, the same patterns repeating. Every mistake, every attempt to start over, it's all cyclical. What patterns are they repeating? Turns out it's the same story every time. Hope, failure, hope, failure. The frustration builds until it can't be contained anymore. The breaking point arrives with a single destructive action. How far will they go to break free? Sometimes breaking things is the only way to finally see what's broken inside. After the breaking point comes the cautious beginning. They start rebuilding one small action at a time. Can they rebuild from here? The answer is in the hands, slowly, carefully, but surely. Sitting alone with an empty plate, they reflect on everything that's led them here. The journey ahead feels both daunting and necessary. What will they discover about themselves in this quiet moment? The answer might surprise them. The first step out of isolation begins with a single phone call. Sometimes reaching out is harder than breaking down. Who will they reach out to for support? The answer rings out as the phone connects. Dude, just when hope feels real, a familiar closed sign triggers that old doubt, pulling you back. But a quick glance from a stranger reminds you composure isn't lost, just a momentary setback. Back at the kitchen, you finally decide to write a plan, turning vague thoughts into concrete steps. That simple line marks a commitment, a tiny spark that pushes doubt aside. You take that short walk, the first tiny win that proves progress is real. Completing the task builds momentum, turning intention into tangible achievement. Morning light filters in, and that sunrise feels like a quiet promise of better days. That calm confidence replaces doubt, showing hope isn't just a feeling, it's a new perspective. Preparing this meal shows how far you've come, turning scarcity into nourishment. The cluttered kitchen now feels comforting, a visual payoff of resilience and integrated growth.